Man, I got to tell you guys something that really caught me off guard. I picked up the Quran recently, right? And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, you hear about it all the time on the news, in political debates, sometimes from people who've never even cracked the cover. There's all this baggage attached to it. So when I started actually reading it, really sitting down with it, I was shocked. And I don't mean shocked in a bad way, like, oh my God, this is terrifying. I mean shocked in the sense of, holy shit, this is way different than what I thought. It's direct, it's raw, it doesn't mess around with flowery storytelling in the way I'm used to with other religious texts. It's like, it's talking straight at you, confront you with ideas, like the book itself is alive and just staring you in the face saying, pay attention. And I wasn't prepared for how intense that felt. Here's the thing. I've read parts of the Bible. I've skimmed the Bhagavad Gita. I've even checked out Buddhist sutras. Most of those read like ancient stories, layered with symbolism and parables. The Quran, man, it's different. It feels like a conversation. Not like you're eavesdropping on someone else's story, but like the words are aimed at you personally in this moment. That was the first shocker. It doesn't feel passive. It feels alive, like it wants to challenge the reader. And the more I read, the more I was like, how has this been around for over 1,000 years, shaping entire civilizations? And I'm just now seeing how wild it is. The other thing that hit me was how much it focuses on awareness, on consciousness. It's constantly reminding you to pay attention, to reflect, to not just get lost in the grind of everyday life. And I couldn't help but think about that in the context of modern psychology and even neuroscience. Like, we're living in this crazy time where scientists are studying mindfulness, meditation, flow states, all the stuff that's basically about tuning in to your own awareness. And here's this ancient book from the 7th century hammering that same point over and over. Wake up, pay attention, don't live like a sleepwalker. That blew my mind. Now, look, I'm not saying I suddenly converted or anything. That's not the point. What I'm saying is that there's something powerful in there that I didn't expect. And it made me reflect on how much of our lives is just autopilot. We wake up, grab the phone, scroll through bullshit, eat some food without tasting it, drive to work half aware, maybe argue about politics on Twitter. Meanwhile, this book is saying, hey, remember that you're alive. Remember that you're going to die. Remember that everything you do actually matters. And man, if you take religion out of it, that's still a damn good reminder. This was another shocker. The Quran talks about the universe, about creation, about the heavens and the earth, in a way that sometimes sounds weirdly close to how modern science describes things. There's passages about the expansion of the universe. Think about that, the expansion of the universe, this idea that space itself is stretching, which scientists only confirmed in the 20th century. And yet, there's language in this book from the 7th century that makes you stop and go, wait a minute, how the hell did they know that? Now, skeptics will say, well, you can interpret anything to fit your narrative. And sure, maybe that's true. But when you're sitting there reading it for yourself, it doesn't feel like a stretch. It feels like it's pointing at something real. The other thing that surprised me, and honestly, this might sound weird, was how often it talks about gratitude. Like, relentless gratitude. Constant reminders to appreciate water, food, the sky, the ground you walk on, the fact that your body even works. And here's the kicker. You don't realize how ungrateful you are until you read something that smacks you in the face with it. Like, think about it. When's the last time you really sat there and thought, holy shit, I can see, my eyes work, my lungs are pulling in oxygen, my heart's pumping blood without me having to do anything. We just take that for granted. But this book is like, don't you dare take it for granted. Pay attention. And that hit me hard. Because if you think about all the psychological research on gratitude now, how it rewires your brain, reduces anxiety, makes you happier, that's exactly what this book was preaching over 1,000 years ago. And the more I read, the more I realized that the Quran is not trying to be some kind of cozy bedtime story. It's intense. It talks about death a lot. It talks about accountability a lot. it talks about the ego, though it doesn't use that word, obviously, in a way that reminded me of conversations I've had with scientists, psychologists, even psychedelic explorers. Like, how much of human suffering comes down to being stuck in your own head, thinking you're the center of the universe, living only for yourself. And here's this ancient book saying, snap out of it. You're not the center. You're a part of something bigger. You're responsible for what you do. And that leads to another thing that kind of floored me. The moral seriousness. Like, we live in this age now where morality feels so relative. Everybody's got their own spin on what's right and wrong. And the Quran just cuts through all that with this unshakable confidence. Like, here's the line. Don't cross it. At first, that rigidity bothered me. I'm like, who gets to decide? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how disorienting it is to live in a culture with no solid ground, where everything is negotiable, everything is up for debate. There's something appealing about the certainty, even if you don't agree with every rule. Just the idea that there is a structure, a moral backbone. It made me think about how much our modern society is kind of floating without that. Now, I know what people are thinking. Joe, aren't you the guy who's always talking about psychedelics and open-minded exploration? How does this book, which seems strict and rigid, fit into that? And that's exactly what intrigued me. Because when I read it, I realized that structure and exploration don't have to cancel each other out. In fact, they can balance each other. Like, think about martial arts. I love jujitsu, and one of the reasons I love it is because it's disciplined. You can't just roll around doing whatever the hell you want. There are rules, there are techniques, there's structure, but within that structure, there's infinite creativity. That's what makes it beautiful. And I started seeing the Quran kind of like that. This framework meant to guide you, but within it, there's room to think, to reflect, to explore. And it's not just me saying this. When you look at Islamic history, you see periods where that framework produced insane levels of creativity, science, art, philosophy, like the Golden Age of Islam, where scholars were mapping the stars, inventing algebra, preserving Greek philosophy. That didn't happen in spite of the Quran. It happened alongside it. And I thought, man, we forget how much of our world owes to that. What struck me was how much it emphasizes compassion and justice. The narrative we get in the West is often that it's harsh, it's brutal, it's violent, and yeah, there are definitely tough verses. No denying that. But when you actually read it, you can't miss how much it hammers the point of mercy, of taking care of the poor, of not cheating people, of being fair. It's obsessed with justice. And again, I had to check myself because my image of it was so colored by the way it's talked about politically. Reading it firsthand was like bypassing all that noise and just seeing what it actually says. I'll tell you what else was weird. The rhythm of it. It's written in a way that's almost hypnotic. And I don't even speak Arabic, so I was just reading a translation. But even then, the repetition, the phrasing, it kind of pulls you in, almost like a mantra. I kept thinking about the science of language, how certain patterns of sound affect the brain. Like when people chant Om in meditation, or when soldiers march in rhythm. There's something about rhythm that gets under your skin, and this book has that. Which makes me wonder, how much more powerful must it be in the original Arabic, the way it was meant to be heard? And here's the part that maybe freaked me out the most. The certainty with which it talks about death and what comes after. Like, there's no hedging, no maybe. It just flat out says, you will die. And then this is what's going to happen. And reading that made me really uncomfortable because none of us likes to think about death. But it also made me reflect on how much our culture avoids it. We distract ourselves, we numb ourselves, we don't want to face it. And here's this ancient book saying, nope, look it in the eye, remember it every day. And you know what? That's healthy. Because when you remember that you're going to die, suddenly the bullshit doesn't matter so much. The arguments on Twitter don't matter. The little petty stuff doesn't matter. You get serious about what really counts.